Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil Podcast, episode 1065, as we continue to look back at the 10-year anniversary of the hit HBO show Insecure, season 1, episode 5, Shady as Fuck. I'm your host, Ril Dil Quinn. So, on this episode, Molly gets disappointed, Issa cheats, Molly gets disappointed, and Tasha makes her move. This was a big episode for this, and a very important episode for this franchise. It was the first episode where if you were not watching it, I'm sure that people were on the phones after this episode say, "Hey, you got to see this show." You can believe it, or they're on the phones with people who are already watching the show. It's like, "Hey, Issa, can you believe what Issa did?" This was the episode that really took this show to an entirely different level. And we're going to begin with the deep dive. Of course, Issa cheating on Lawrence with Daniel. This was something that I want to say this, like when I first watched this way back when, I wasn't shocked. I was surprised. I knew that she had feelings for Daniel. I knew that someone had a soft spot for him. She never was completely shutting the door, even though, she would say, "Yeah, I got a boyfriend," but she always kept that door somewhat ajar. So I wasn't shocked by it, but even now, 10 years later, and this being my first rewatch of this show, I'm more surprised now than I was, much more surprised now than I was when I first watched it. The thing about this whole sequence and things that and scenes that led up to them sleeping with each other, having sex at his studio. It's not like he didn't exactly he didn't exactly have to work hard in order for this to happen. You got the sense that she wanted this as much as he wanted it, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, that scene, the scene before they have sex, that vulnerability that she's having with him, I mean, you could cut that tension with a knife. He's telling her, "I wasn't ready then, but what if I'm ready now?" And like I said, he did not have to work particularly hard in order for this to happen. And it's like what made the writing of this episode, the high level of this episode was that the fact that she, her and Lawrence at this point, they're in a pretty good place. They got a new couch. Lawrence has a new job. Issa had redeemed herself in terms of what was going on at her job. So things in her life are going on the upswing. Like things are going seemingly in the right direction, and she still chooses to do this. And this was absolutely the discourse after this episode. This was the birth of the Team Lawrence or Team Issa. This absolutely was the birth. Now there'll be another scene later on in the episode that takes it to the entirely different level. The season finale in episode 8. But this was the birth of it, of those different camps amongst the culture and the online discourse. And again, this episode, this scene took this show to a whole nother level. You can make a case, and Prentice Penny, showrunner, Issa Rae both say that this was a top 5 episode. I would venture to say that this scene with with Issa and Daniel was one of the more probably important scenes in the history of the franchise. I don't think that showing Issa, first of all, having a woman cheat on the man, a good man, and doing it in the same episode where Lawrence, pushes away an advance being made at him. We'll talk more about that in best scenes. So this again, just the whole sequence of events that took place in this episode between these two characters, and again, we've known, since Daniel came onto the scene in episode 1, we've known that he still had a thing for Issa. It was obvious. So like Daniel's not hadn't been hiding anything in regards to that, in his feelings about Issa and what have you, in that energy. Even her kids, that the scene in last week's episode. In the last episode, we talked about episode 4, where she's in the classroom with him and the kids. Even the kids could see it. So it's been obvious. But looking back at what I thought about this scene originally, and this direction that the show took, it's a very it could be seen as a controversial direction, making the star of the show possibly could be hated or looked upon, frowningly looked upon by the audience in a way. So it was kind of a little bit risky by Issa Rae and Prentice Penny, but just incredible writing. So when they're done having sex, she gets up in the mirror, goes to the bathroom. He's asleep because she has to go. She does have a man at home. She gets up in the mirror, and there is a almost exhilaration after the sex, where she almost was about to smile, but then she looks at the lotion pump, or the hand, not the lotion pump, or the hand soap pump, and makes her think about a callback to last week's episode 4, where her and Lawrence are shopping for the couch, and they see the lotion pump and what have you, and immediately you see the guilt and the shame. And I thought Issa Rae in that scene was just tremendous in that scene. Maybe the first time all season that she was in the mirror and didn't say anything. So that was a very powerful scene at the end of that. Basically, at the end of the episode. Obviously, this was a game-changing dynamic for this show. A relationship-altering decision by Issa. Of course, we'll see what the ramifications will be moving forward. And again, I got the sense from this scene, watching this scene, that the thing that jumped out to me was the fact that again, Daniel didn't particularly have to beg her to do this. It wasn't like he put himself out there he basically laid it out there what if I'm ready right now? And it didn't take much. She folded pretty quickly, and she folded pretty easily. He woos her with the the studio in regards to her rapping and what have you. He knows that she loves music. He knows that she thinks that she could have been a rapper, but he knows that she has that in her. And you see a guy in Daniel who brings out of her, things. He brings stuff out of her that just, frankly, let's be honest, that Lawrence didn't bring out of her. Like that Lawrence, the Lawrence Issa dynamic. I don't think Lawrence and Issa has up to this point had even had sex up until this point. So, and this is through now 5 episodes. So there have been minimum to no intimacy between Lawrence and Issa. Now you have this guy who she's clearly physically always been physically attracted to. They've had a thing before, and she fell pretty easily. Like she was pretty. It was borderline light work for Mr. Daniel. Best scenes. Molly and Chris. So Molly sleeps with Chris. Following last episode, we talked about how much they vibe, the music. They go, so they sleep. Immediately basically sleep together. He spends the night, and then Molly becomes, does Molly shit and just almost scares the guy off with just aggressive tactics as far as, hey, you should bring an extra suit here, and she invites him to an engagement party for a coworker, which is like Molly's just moving recklessly and looking extremely just continuously looking just thirsty, and he gives Chris is like, let's play this by ear. He does end up showing up to the engagement party, and then that goes south quickly because he at the engagement party says, "Hey, this is my girlfriend," and she's like, "Oh," she's pleasantly surprised at that point. They go to the bar, and she basically says, "Are you serious about that?" And he says, "Nah, I was just thinking that, I was just playing the part, and it seemed like you needed to win." And that, like, you talk about a shift of emotions. She, like Molly, up to this point in of the series, that was the lowest point that we've seen Molly at all season. Basically, you think I'm a loser? Like, you think you think you were doing me a favor? Like I was out here, desperate, and which she was. And, again, I don't blame. Can you blame Chris for? It might have been a stretch. That might have been a stretch to go that, to go in that direction. You could say that Chris probably shouldn't have did that, but she was thirsty. I mean, yeah, like we've had sex. What, you gonna invite me to an engagement party? Like, we can't go on another date, or we can't, like, let's pump the brakes. But Molly, that's not who Molly is at this point. She tells him he should leave, and he immediately, with no hesitation, all right, basically left and left. So that was that. We go to Tasha and Lawrence. So Lawrence is working at Best Buy. Tasha comes out with the coconuts and with this revealing top. You can see Tasha's breast. She comes out and she basically tries to give Lawrence some praise about this. He does something with the computer that has a sign on it that the whole Best Buy part, the whole television that he put on the television screen. It was light work for him, but she gives him just effusive praise for that. She comes in Best Buy with stilettos on and says, I was looking for some batteries, and working out I must have passed them by. And this is Tasha, like, just making her move. Like, this is Tasha. This was when you were like, okay, this is Tasha, like, wants this dude. So she tries to ask him for, we can go get some tacos and jalapenos and some drinks or something like that. And he, respectfully rebuffs her and says, hey, I got a girlfriend. And, that was that. Again, Tasha came in there with a purpose. Tasha came in like I gotta shoot my shot. Tasha had played the long game throughout the course of the season with a little, a little nip here, a little nip there. Nothing too over the top as far as her coming after Lawrence. But this was like her absolutely shooting her shot and completely putting herself out there, and give credit to Lawrence. Lawrence is like, I'm good for right now. And Lawrence, and again, respectfully, Lawrence declines her invitation for another meetup. Jared and Molly. So Molly at this point is a complete wreck. After Chris leaves the engagement party, she gets just wasted. She shows up at Jared's place, drunk. Mind you, she had called Jared earlier in the episode to find out, Molly, Issa Rae, the video of Issa Rae, the Broken Pussy video, of course, got posted on YouTube. Her students saw it, so they went through this whole ridiculous charade, trying to track down who could have posted the video, who did, which is impossible. Anybody at that little event could have posted that video. Jared was there. Daniel was there, so they try to find out through any of Jared's or Daniel's people who's posted the video. She calls Jared. Jared was like, "Hey," she calls Jared to ask him about that, which is basically, she says it was basically the only reason she called. Then so now she shows up at his place drunk, and I mean drunk to a point to where she, I think, vomited in the bathroom. And she falls asleep on his couch. And, like, again, this is Molly at an extreme low point. Just desperate. Completely desperate. And, Molly, again, you see in this episode, it was an episode of rejection and an episode where you see Molly and Issa, Issa gets what she wants, but with the cost, and you see Molly continuously not being able to get out of her own way. Again, this was a signature episode. I would give this episode definitely gets an A+ to me. Best episode of the season up until this point. A situation where, like, you have to, like I said, this was the episode that really got people, I think, on a national scene, hooked to this show, or this episode, I think, really put this show on the map. And I thought it was, from start to finish, the music, just the vulnerability of the characters, the disappointment. I mean, Molly just being devastated. I thought it was a top-notch episode, top-notch episode in regards to the first 5 that we've seen. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil Podcast, as we continue to look at the 10th anniversary and season 1 of Insecure. We'll be back next time with episode 6, season 1, episode 6 of the hit HBO series Insecure. I will see you next time. So long.